At First Unitarian Church of Orlando. I'm Ted Nelson, one of our worship associates. Thank you for joining us today. In the words of Monica Jacobson Tennyson, welcome. What you bring, who you are, enriches us all. We say welcome to your joy, your hope, your pride. We say welcome to your grief, your fear, your anger, and the parts of you that are not yet ready to be seen or heard. Welcome to them as well. May this time be a blessing. For more information on our congregation, go to www.orlandouu.org or email WelcomeTeam@orlandouu.org. After service today at 11:30, members and friends are welcome to our spring congregational meeting, where you'll get updates on many of the important programs and projects of the congregation. This year, members are voting online. You'll find information on that in the weekly update, as well as in the special email sent last Sunday. Here's the information on linking to that meeting. All are welcome. Just for today, our usual after-church fellowship and welcome center are not meeting. We'll see you in the congregational meeting. We're now preparing for another program year in ministry, and our Lighting the Way campaign is well, lighting the way for next year and the new generation of ministry that follows. You should have received your pledge packets in the mail. Here's a quick progress report. We've received about 33 pledges so far for about $120,000 in total gifts. As a reminder, our budget goal is $416,000. This Saturday, March 27th, you can drive to the campus and return your pledge card confirming your planned giving, conveniently and confidentially, or mail it. Or new this year, go to our website, and on the home page, there's a link to your generosity pledge online. In advance, thank you for generosity that lights our way to the congregation's next era. First Unitarian of Orlando provides a spiritual home for me. It challenges me to be more and to do more. It provides a respite from the world. And as a supportive and accepting community, it restores me so that I can go back into the world and live our values and make a positive difference. So if you'd like to make an offering to support the many ministries of this congregation, go to orlandouu.org and click the donate button in the upper right corner, or send a text, or send a check. And finally, remember that each month we invite gifts to our Share the Plate program that benefits one of our community partners that provides important services in our community. This month, it's the Healthcare Center for the Homeless. Just give a gift to Share the Plate in the same ways as the gift to the church, and note that it's for our Share the Plate program. Or give directly to the center and send us an email so we can track our church's gifts. Now, let us gather in worship.
Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, God of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee, hail thee as the sun above. Melt the clouds of sin and sadness, drive the pain of doubt giver of immortal gladness, fill us with the joy, fill us with the joy, oh, fill us with the joy of day. Thy works with joy surround thee, earth and heaven reflect the rays, stars and planets sing around thee, center of unbroken praise. Field and forest, vale and mountain, blossoming meadow, flashing sea, oh, chanting bird and flowing fountain, fill us with the joy of day, joy of day. Come and join the chorus, the mighty, mighty chorus, which the morning stars began. Universal love is shining over us, love watches over everything. So we sing, thou art giving and forgiving, ever blessing, never blessed. Wellspring of the joy of living, ocean ocean depth of happy rest, ever singing, march we onward, victors in the midst of strife. Joyful music lifts us sunward, sunward in the triumph song of life.
These words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, famous Unitarian minister and essayist of the 19th century, call us together. Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love. Come to this place of love and spirit and soul. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Orlando. My name is Jean Siegfried and I've been around for a while. So please join me in the lighting of a chalice as we do to open our services each Sunday. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Gray, religious educator here at First Unitarian Church of Orlando. Today, I'll be telling a story about John Murray, who was a preacher who helped introduce Universalism, the second U in our name, to America. If you tuned in last week, you'll notice that the storytelling format is very similar to the story we did last week on the first Unitarians in America, but this format is a little bit different than our normal Sunday story. That's because it's a story from Spirit Play, which is a UU religious education program that's derived from the Montessori method. This involves active storytelling with manipulatives, which you will see shortly, and this is followed by a time of wondering questions about the story. In the classroom, the participants will then be invited to select art materials and other hands-on materials in the room to respond to the story in their own way. So we'll stop short of doing that because it's kind of hard in a virtual environment, but you're welcome to respond in your own way at home. If you're intrigued by this new way of doing RE for our children and you want to learn more, I encourage you to reach out to me and anyone on our RE team. We are looking for members of our congregation to come into our classrooms when we go back in person and engage the children as storytellers using the Spirit Play method. If you like Spirit Play and want to help but have talents other than storytelling, we'd love to have you too. There's so much to do to prepare our spaces and get materials ready to launch this program whenever we do return. So if you want to learn more, you can actually join us today after the service in our congregational meeting, and I'll give you more information about Spirit Play as well as our other RE programs that we hope to launch upon our return. And now, let's explore the story of the minister from England, John Murray, who brought the ideas of Universalism to our country so many years ago. John Murray Coming to America by Ralph Roberts. What could this be? Could be a big blue book. Maybe it's a big blue box. Sky is often blue. Maybe it's the sky. What else can be blue? The ocean can be blue. I think maybe it's the ocean. Let's see what else we have to work with. Maybe these two pieces can help us. They can go on top of each other like this. Or maybe they work better end to end like that. Ooh, maybe they could work like this. Let's see if that helps. That does help. This could be land, a shore, one here, on either side of the ocean. Between these two shores is water, so much water. I wonder how much water there was between these two shores. So this is a story about a boy who was born on one of these shores. When he became a man, he took the long journey to the other shore. This boy's name was John Murray. John became a minister when he grew up. He rode around from city to city, teaching people how to love each other and love God. Many of the people where John lived believed that God punished people, sometimes in horrible ways. They also believed that God only cared about very few people. But John couldn't believe that God was angry and punished people. In fact, he was certain that God was loving. He also had a hard time believing that God only loved a few people. God was so big and so loving. John was certain that God loved all people. John traveled around letting people know that God loved them and that God loved all people and that God wasn't angry and wasn't going to punish them. But people couldn't always believe John. They would get so angry at him that they would tell him to leave their towns. John finally decided that he was finished with preaching. He had many sad things happen to him, and on top of that, people didn't like hearing that God loved them. John decided that he wasn't going to preach anymore. He also decided that he was going to leave his country, which was England, and take the long journey to America. John got a job on a boat which was sailing for America. It was a long trip. Meanwhile, there was a man in America named Potter. Potter was a farmer who owned a lot of land. Potter had been having the strangest dreams. He began to think that God was talking to him in his dreams. Mr. Potter had a dream in which God told him that he needed to build a church building on his land near the ocean, and that God would send a preacher who would come and preach from that pulpit. God also told Mr. Potter that the preacher would preach a wonderful message of love and that would change people's lives. So Potter did what he was told in the dream. He built a church building. And then he waited. I wonder if the minister will ever come. I wonder who that minister is. The boat on which John Murray was sailing finally made it to America, but the water got shallow and the boat got stuck just offshore. They had been traveling for a long time and had begun to run out of food, so the captain of the ship asked John to go ashore and buy some food to bring back to the boat. John came to the shore, and where was he? He was on Mr. Potter's land, and he ran into Mr. Potter. And Potter met John saying the strangest thing. He said, "You are the preacher who will speak the good news from the pulpit I have built." John didn't know about Mr. Potter's dream that he was to build a chapel and that a preacher would come and preach God's love. But as strange as it all was, John liked Mr. Potter and spoke with the man for a long time. He finally admitted that he was a minister, and though at first he didn't want to, John finally agreed to preach that Sunday. That Sunday, he climbed into the pulpit and told the people there to go out and give a glimpse at God's love. Give them not hell, but hope. John didn't stay with Mr. Potter, but he did stay in America, and he did start preaching again. He founded many churches devoted to spreading the message of love. I wonder if you had ever seen or heard any of this before. I wonder what was your favorite part of the story. I wonder where you might be in the story. I wonder if John was ever scared that people wouldn't like what he was telling them. I wonder if Mr. Potter ever worried that the preacher would never come. I wonder if you've ever had a dream like Mr. Potter. I wonder what other ways God speaks to people. I wonder if Mr. Potter was happy or disappointed when the preacher came. I wonder if this lesson reminds you of any of our Unitarian Universalist promises. I wonder where the spirit of love and mystery could be in this story.
And now we enter a time of mindfulness, of meditation and prayer. And as always, we begin at the hearing of the joys and the concerns in our congregation and the world. Today, with our spring congregational meeting coming up right after this worship service at 11:30, I think we should take some time to mindfully and heartfully and prayerfully bless the leaders of this congregation, all those who help and work so diligently to prepare a place for us and for the welcoming of strangers. Blessings on all you do to make our church what it is. And related to that, let's remember the Ministerial Search Committee as they work quietly behind the scenes, listening, I think, to the monitions of spirit, soul, and love as they are led to the candidate for ministry who will serve this church's ministry in the next generation. They have done much hard work, and next month we'll see the fruit of that work. Committee, thank you for all you do in the church. And we remember all those who are recovering from illnesses or medical procedures and those who are not recovering, and know that all are held in the bonds of affection of this congregation. And as always, we remember the unspoken concerns among us, and we know that the light of the sacred shines into the dark and broken places of our lives and all life. And as always, let's take a deep breath together. Oh, mindful of the connections that sustain us in this community, mindful of our interdependence with each other and with all. And now, let's sing to open our hearts.
Immortal love, forever full, forever flowing free, forever shed, forever whole, a never-ending sea. Our outward lips confess the name, all other names above. But love alone knows whence it came, and comprehendeth love. Blow winds of love awake and blow the mists of hate away. Sing out, O truth divine, and tell how wide and far we stray. The letter fails, the systems fall, and every system Spirit overseeing all, eternal love remains.
When you go into the silence, you may use either Facebook comments or YouTube chat to name anyone in your life who needs prayer, remembering, or honoring in our communion of names. We begin with a meditation and prayer from William Schultz. We affirm that every one of us is held in creation's hand, a part of the interdependent cosmic web, and hence strangers need not be enemies, that no one is saved until we all are saved, where all means the whole of creation. And so we are mindful of the sufferings in our community and the world. We pray for all those who are hurting in any manner of body, mind, or spirit. For these and for all we pray for a greater sense of fulfillment, peace, health, relationship, abundance, and sufficiency in all things. Now, with the private meditations of our hearts, we enter the silence in the communion of names. And so it is. Amen. Blessed be.
Hi, everybody. I'm Catherine Vaccaro, and I'm a relatively new member of 1U. But as you know from having seen me on Zoom quite a bit this year, I've become very active. I grew up in Orlando, and I long admired 1U from a distance, but it took a push from a friend to actually get me involved. When I came here, I was just amazed at how welcoming everyone was and how committed you are to each other and to the community. It meant the world to me. And it's easy for me to get involved with something and give of my time and my talent, but it can be hard for me to give money. And when I saw how frugal you are with your money, how well you spend it, I said, gee, I trust these people more than I trust myself. And it was easy to give. I find a true sense of belonging here, and I am so proud of everything that we do. I encourage you to do the same.
Love changes everything, hands and faces, earth and sky. Love changes everything, how you live and how you die. Love can make a summer fly, or a night seem like a lifetime. Yes, love changes everything. Now I tremble at your name. Nothing in the world will ever be the same. Love changes everything. Days are longer, words mean more. Love can break the strongest heart. Pain is deeper than before. Love will turn your world around, and that world love, love changes everything, brings you glory, brings you shame. Nothing in the world will ever be the same. Off into the world we go, planning futures, shaping years. Love bursts in and suddenly all our wisdom disappears. Love make fools of everyone. All the rules we make are broken. Yes, love changes everything. Live or perish in its flame. Love will never, never let you be the same. Love will never, never let you be the same.
Last week, we explored the beginnings of Unitarianism in America and how that's influenced our practice in the 21st century in Unitarian Universalism. Today, we encounter our Universalist heritage in America. And just like last week, the story today, done in spirit play style, shows us the outlines of the beginnings of Universalism in America. John Murray, indeed a Methodist minister in England, was trying to leave ministry following many tragedies in his life. The death of his son, then his wife, then 4 of his siblings, and then he was sentenced to debtor's prison, and he was wanting a new start in the new nation of America, as is the story so much in history. And he found a job on a ship to start a new life outside ministry here, wandered up to land after the ship got stuck close to Good Luck, New Jersey, and discovered Thomas Potter, who had indeed built a chapel on his farm, awaiting a minister who would preach the Universalist message of the everlasting love of God. So we credit Murray with the beginnings of Universalism on these shores. Now, in actuality, some Universalist writings had already made it over here and influenced people, including, indeed, Thomas Potter himself. But Murray and his wife, Judith Sargent Murray, indeed spread the gospel of Universalism all over New England. A familiar cry of that early generation was, "Give them not hell, but hope." That line is credited to John Murray. "Give them not hell, but hope and courage. Preach the kindness and everlasting love of God." In reality, the author of that text is unknown, having been early accredited to Murray. But whoever wrote it, it's a clear exposition that God was infinite love and light, and that we have a portion of that love and light in ourselves, and our goal, therefore, is to bring forth more love and light in the world. That's not a bad mission statement, as we might say today, for a new religious movement. It was a bold statement, and many acknowledged its truth. As the young nation grew west, Universalism went west with it, using circuit riders, familiar to you probably moreover in the Methodist tradition. Universalists had them as well. Ministers on horseback going town to town, spreading the good news of the everlasting love of God. They were evangelicals in the truest sense of that word, and Universalism grew to be large. By some accounts, it was the 6th or so largest denomination in America in the latter 19th century. Murray died in 1815, and while we remember him for the beginnings of Universalism, the more major figure in the 19th century was Hosea Ballou. Ballou led the Universalist church in the first half of the 19th century and gave it its denominational identity. Ballou was born in 1771, the son of a poor Baptist farmer preacher in New Hampshire. He was self-educated, and he pondered the question, how could a good God be responsible for the endless sufferings of humans, creatures of God's own making? It was a good theological question to ask. He finally found his way to Universalism and became the leading spokesperson for that rapidly growing movement. In 1805, he published his book, A Treatise on Atonement, laying out his carefully reasoned theological arguments that theology is best understood in human experience, not by deducing abstract ideas speculatively. He served Second Universalist Church in Boston from 1817 until he died in 1852. Now, if you remember last week's sermon, and I'm sure you do, it was right around the same time when he was pastoring Second Universalist Church that the great Unitarian Dr. William Ellery Channing was also holding forth in Boston. Wasn't it great that two of our most important 19th century ministers were there together in Boston pastoring different congregations, but united in spirit and love for their traditions, each important liberal traditions in the 19th century, and a precursor to the 20th century consolidation of Unitarians and Universalists. Well, not quite. It's not like they were playing in the same sandbox at all. If you're new to these stories of our heritage, you may know that the Unitarians and the Universalists of that generation in that century shared many great liberal values and ideas, but they were decidedly different faith traditions, distinct and separate movements in that generation. And the differences weren't so much theological, they were cultural, and especially they were demographic. The Unitarians were by and large highly educated, affluent, and well-placed in the Brahmin culture of Boston. Boston and its suburbs, the rest of the country being, of course, suburbs of Boston according to a Boston Brahmin outlook. The Universalists were largely rural and small-town folk, farmers especially, as well as shopkeepers. Now, I said their disagreements were not so much theological. Actually, there were some differences in their theologies that I think came more from their demographics than from their objective theological ideas. In Boston, Channing even preached against Ballou once, didn't name him directly, but cited someone like him as the author of, quote, the problematic idea of the ultra-universalists, since it suggested that the improvement of character could not ultimately save a person. Now, one of Channing's key ideas was salvation by character, that we are saved insofar as we develop this wonderful character that has been given to us by God. But that sort of puts humans in the driving seat. The Universalists believed in what could be called, and they sometimes joked, salvation in spite of character. Even if you were reprehensible, God loved you and you would be saved from eternal damnation. So, the main focus of the Unitarians was on human ability and character. Socially, the Unitarians were people of ability, resource, people who could control their lives more. The focus of the Universalists was on the greater context of their lives, on what they called God. Their social location was decidedly different from the Unitarians. They largely lived off the land, within the inconsistencies of the cycles of the earth, planting, growing, hoping that at harvest time everything would come together. They were people who had less control of their lives. As the 19th century progressed, the two groups began recognizing their shared liberal heritage more and more. Some began to speculate that they should join together. By the 20th century, with demographic categories becoming a little bit more mushy, it seemed more likely. In the 1930s, a commission was elected to explore merger, but they recommended that then was not the right time for that. But that started a conversation among the two traditions, and segments of the two liberal denominations explored the subject. The youth groups of both the Unitarians and the Universalists began cooperating more and getting together more. And notably, I think, in 1937, the Unitarians published a new hymn book, Hymns of the Spirit. We call it the Red Hymnal because it was in this dark red binding that you see. But though published by the Unitarians, it was composed by hymn book commissions from both the Unitarians and the Universalists. It was published, it said, for use in the free churches of America, naming their churches as free churches, meaning both the Unitarian and the Universalists. All of this laid the foundation for the eventual 1961 merger into the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. Now, back to Universalism. Despite its outreach in the 19th century and its great growth, by the early 20th century, it was facing serious declines in membership. In part, probably majorly, because its distinctive liberal Christian position in the heresy of universal salvation seemed less distinctive among the modernizing Christian mainline. Christianity, even in the mainline, never fully renounced its idea of eternal damnation, but it became something that was not taught and preached about nearly as much. And so the Universalists at the time lost their distinctive. And as the 20th century progressed, Unitarianism continued to move away, as it had started to in the 19th century, of becoming just a Christian tradition and engaging more points of view and more religious traditions. And later did the Universalists, as it began to redefine itself as not so much about Christian universal salvation, but about honoring the universality of religion, that is, the many ways of being religious across the globe. Now, they did this later than the Unitarians and with less intensity, but they did make that journey. So at the time of merger in 1961, the Universalists were the weaker sect in terms of membership, standing, and cultural outreach. So the new Unitarian Universalist Association was decidedly Unitarian in outlook, in construction, in culture. So in our generation, I think, as we move into the 21st century more deeply, I think universalism is ready for a renewal among us, and that we are just discovering the power of our heritage in universalism. And what could that heritage be? Well, as I said, the Universalists saw themselves as primarily part of a larger whole. Now, they described that in a theocentric way. Theos, or God, was the center of that. And that still holds up theologically for some of us, but it is also larger than just that. To say that we are part of a living, loving, organic, wider reality is a common idea among us. It is defensible in science, it is defensible in philosophy, and it is certainly defensible in theology. Here at 1U in Orlando, in each worship service, as we enter a time of mindfulness, meditation, and prayer, as I say every Sunday, on the state of our community and the wider world, what do? We breathe. We breathe as a symbol of what? Of our interdependence with each other and with all. Interdependence is the ultimate and stark and final reality facing our global human community. Now, this is not to slight individuality or independence when that is necessary, and it often is. Boundaries are a good thing. It's healthy to know where me stops and you begin. There's a lot of organizational anxiety and trauma I've seen in our churches when folks don't understand that and expect everyone to think and live as they do. But ultimately, we belong to each other and to the world and to the generations before us and to the generations after us. Ultimately, it's not about us. In fact, let's go back to that 1937 hymn book, Hymns of the Spirit. It said, "For use in the free churches of America." What a wonderful, expansive view. Hymns of the Spirit. How about hymns for the soul? For churches that take the human condition seriously and explore the soul quality of life. How about hymns for love? For churches that take seriously the sufferings of the human condition and take their love out to the world. To, as we sometimes say, to love the hell right out of the world. There's a universalism. Wow. Hymns, and this isn't just about the hymns we sing. This is about the kind of church we are. A church for the free spirit, for the soul, for love. And we've got to listen to the monitions of spirit, soul, and love moving among us. For we have a mission, we Unitarian Universalists. Now, how that mission is described varies greatly among our congregations. Our various churches, each in their own ways, define their way of doing church, and our association of churches that are self-determinative, self-governed, and self-sustaining communities. We'll get a big dose of that in the congregational meeting that follows as we talk about how we are church together. But we do that, and our churches should do that, not just working out of the good ideas of our minds, but listening, paying attention to the movement of the Spirit and the soul and the love that works through us and in the world. The reading attributed to John Murray, and we have it in our current gray hymn book. It's number 704 if you ever want to look at it. I think this also could be a call to a new way of being church in the 21st century. In these words attributed to John Murray in the early 19th century, "Go out into the highways and byways. Give the people something of your new vision. You may possess a small light, but uncover it, let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts and minds of men and women. Give them not hell, but hope and courage, preaching the kindness and everlastingness of spirit, of soul, of love, of, as Murray's generation put it, of God." For I'm convinced, my friends, that there is something in us that is not of us, something good and perfect and true, something the world needs, something we have in some measure where we might transform lives and heal our world. So it is, and so it might be. Amen.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Now we extinguish his flame, but not the light of truth, not the warmth of community, and certainly not the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Remember, my friends, we haven't just been to church, we are the church. And when the church is the church, it is nothing less, it is nothing more, it is nothing other than a place of soul, of connection, of love, of service. This week in all you do, be the church. Go in grace. Amen.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river that keeps flowing in my mind. There's a river that's flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river, oh, it's flowing. There's a river, it keeps flowing. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul. Yeah.